Hey everybody, welcome to Campus Comics Cast, coming to you from Carbondale, Illinois, with special guests from the Campus Comics crew. And now, here's your host, the man with the previews in hand, Mike No. Hello and welcome to another episode of Campus Comics Cast. I'm Mike No, owner-operator here at Campus Comics in beautiful downtown Carbondale, Illinois, right on Main Street. We're coming to you, as always, from inside the store, and we're going to just talk about some various topics today. Just kind of we have our special guest again with us here, super special guest, Mike Atchison, and we just let him pick the topics since he was so psyched to be here for a couple podcasts, and he threw a bunch out there. And for good or bad, these are the ones I picked.
Probably more for the bad.
Yeah. But anyway, so just listen along with us. We have some conversations, and joining me tonight are
Scott Reed
And Dan Brown and special Mike Atchison.
Super special guest. Cameo appearance by Mike Atchison. All right, so this is kind of a veritable potpourri of topics. You know, I just kind of picked some that Mike threw out there. And first off, what we're going to talk about is, and this will vary greatly from, you know, as far as the extent of this, but we've asked it to limit it to 3 items, and it's what's in your read pile. And if you're a comic reader of worth your salt, you've got a backlog of stuff that you have not read that you intend to read one day. Again, I am not a comic reader worth my salt, so my my read pile is very little. A lot of stuff I want to get around to, but don't actually have a pile. You know, so do you want to start, Scott?
It doesn't matter. I think maybe Mike should start since it's his topic.
It's
so
his topic, sure.
We going to do all three, or are we going to do round robin one at a time?
I like round robin.
Okay,
Let's
round
do that
robin.
then.
Okay, all right. So
Okay.
you go first, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mike. Cut me off after about 20 minutes, okay?
No, you're good.
My first pick is being probably equal parts collector and reader. I found out some years ago about a certain event that was an unofficial crossover between Marvel and DC in the early 70s. It's the Rutland, Vermont Halloween Parade that appears in everything from Thor to Marvel Feature to Justice League of America to Batman and Avengers. And I wanted to collect all of those issues. So I just, within the last month, picked up Avengers 119. And the reason I say unofficial is because the creators, you had Len Wein, and his girlfriend then was Gwyneth. She wasn't it Gwyneth her name? But anyway, you had Steve Englehart, you had Jerry Conway, and these are all young, early 70s dudes with their bell bottoms. So they're taking a road trip in upstate, in the Northeast, up around Vermont, and in all of these issues, they're in this parade, and there are characters in the parade that are dressed up as, if it's a DC book, like Batman, say, you've got a Thor and you've got a Captain America analog. Not perfect, replica, but they're appearing. And they did all this stuff without any of the editor's knowledge. I think Roy Thomas was probably the editor at DC at Marvel at the time, and I don't think there was any angst over it, but they were rebellious enough. So I wanted to collect all these, and I just got this Avengers 119. It was January 1974 is when it was put out, and nothing more really exciting than the collectability of it than that. It's really,
read them all.
but it's all mine to read. And
So that Avengers 119, is that the last one?
No, I've got Marvel Feature number 2. And Avengers 83, and Avengers 83 is a little bit tougher because it's also the first appearance of Valkyrie.
Oh, I got that book.
Okay, so Scott, I'm going to put that on my list for you to find for me. But yeah, it's just it's fun, it's neat, it's kind of snubbing their nose at the editors, saying we're going to do this whether you want to do a crossover or not, and it's
We're gonna
fun.
acknowledge each other anyway.
Yeah.
But they did that. There was a new universe title, Justice, on Marvel that actually had an unofficial Joker appearance inside of it, apparently. I've never actually seen it,
yeah?
but it's one of those things you see in the price guide where it says unofficial Joker inside of it. So
Well.
they've done those kind of riffs and stuff previously. I mean,
We're
they
gonna-
do occasionally. So
We're gonna have to take a look at the back room. 'Cause
Yeah.
it might be back there.
Oh yeah, New Universe is like
Yeah,
So we got some good. We got some plenty new universe back there. If anybody's interested, you're a new universe completionist. Come on down.
All right, Dan, how about you?
I got quite a bit on my reading pile. I've got about 4 long boxes of back issues right now, and 2 long boxes of hardcovers and trades I haven't gotten to. Right now, just off the top of my head, and I have been for a few years now, collecting Detective Comics in the 400s, kind of working my way backwards with Batman. I just picked up some from Scott. I was looking for at the SlookyCon a few weeks back. So that's kind of some stuff I'm looking forward to getting around to reading right now. You still got some Neil Adams in there and stuff like that. You've got like first appearance Italia in there and things like that. There's some good, I'm assuming good stories. I haven't read them yet, but I've kind of been whittling my way with Batman for a while now. And that's how I go at it. It's at 100 issue chunks like that and just work backwards. So, but yeah, I'm about to finish up the 400s of Detective, and so I'll be reading some of those
Okay,
that I haven't gotten to yet.
sounds good.
wow.
Well, I guess I'll go. I'll go next here. Again, like I said, I do not read like I should or like I want to. So really, I just have a few things in my read pile, and most of them are just current issues of books that we've been talking about on podcasts. So really, just what is it? I still haven't read Doomsday Clock number 7. So we got Sig. We did a
Well,
podcast.
we'll get
about
to that.
Sig, so yeah, we'll get to that.
we got time for that one.
Yeah, but yeah, it's not like they're throwing them out there real quick. So really, that's really the only thing, you've heard us do entire podcasts about it practically, about Doomsday Clock, but that's really the top thing I have. I haven't read Doomsday Clock number 7 yet, so
That's pretty pitiful.
it is.
That is so
It's
depressing.
really sad. I know.
You own the story. You should
know.
have. You got all this opportunity.
You can read. You can just sit here and read all this stuff
That's
all
all
day.
I do. That's all.
Yeah,
comic
that's all
shop
you do.
owners
That's all you do when
right?
you work at a
Just sit
store,
around
right?
and- Yeah, read comics. That's all I do.
Worst cameo ever.
I told you it was sad.
Yeah.
No, I did not lie.
Well,
Scott.
okay, so I keep my to read pile to about like 3 magazine size boxes, and it's a mix of back issues and trades and individual issues. And I have tons of new stuff. I haven't read Doomsday Clock 7 yet either. It's in my to read pile, but
I've read it.
But I want
Show
Hey,
off.
and I really want to read it. I'm actually looking
do
forward to
too.
it. It's just finding
Maybe
that
our
time.
next show should be a synopsis on that.
Yeah. But so I went through my to read pile, and I kind of picked out like 3 of the weirdest things that I have in my to read pile. So the first thing that I decided on was I have all 3 volumes of the DC Superpowers series in my to read pile.
Nice.
It's one of the Now I am expecting this to be awful.
No.
But it is one of the few Kirby things from DC that that I haven't read. Other than I haven't read much Commandy either, so I want to get that in my to read pile. But so I have all 3 volumes, Superpowers. Anything that's based off of Toy Line has to be terrific. So that is sitting there, and it's like there's a 6-issue series, there's a 4-issue series, and there's a 5-issue series. It's like these bizarre from 1985 and 1986. So yeah, so you got the green armored Lex Luthor all going up against Darkseid. So yeah, so that is there waiting for my enjoyment.
What blew my mind is that in 1985 you had the Crisis on Infinite Earths, where worlds will die, worlds will live, and the DC universe will never be the same. But then you also have superpowers. Wow. And you also had Amazing Man. Don't forget Amazing Man, which I will recommend that someday to you guys. It is a great read.
You got a Dark Knight Returns cameo on a cover of Amazing
That's
Man.
right, yeah.
yeah.
And I tell you what, say what you will, I could probably do a whole episode on superpowers.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading it. If I'm surprised, maybe that's what we
Oh,
should
yeah.
do.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's what we should do. once
Seeds
I
of
read it.
Doom.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to reading
Yeah.
it. So,
I'd have to reread it. But I will.
that's all right. So round 2.
All right.
All right. Deep cut, guys. Phantom Lady number 2.
Which volume?
Second. This is not Fox. It's not Quality. Then it's actually the 3rd volume. And the publication of this title was very convoluted, but that's sort of what intrigued me. I knew a little bit from listening to podcasts and reading about it, but probably Phantom Lady is most famous for being a Quality character that really wasn't all that risque. But when Quality, I think it was the Eisner Eiger studio that actually created the character and then sold the rights to Quality, and then somehow Quality just quit publication, and Eisner and Eiger Studios, Will Eisner, of course, pretty much told Fox Features, you guys want to publish this, go ahead. Just pay for it, whatever. And that's when Matt Baker got involved, and he's the one that did the Good Girl art that's famous for the Frederick Wortham legislative hearings with the whole headlight thing and all that. So I thought, okay, this is a number 2. It's a February-March 1955, and on the cover it said Ajax Farrell. So I thought, I got to look up what is. So it turns out after Fox quit publishing, then it ended up going to Ajax Farrell, and they acquired the rights. But by that time, the Wortham thing had come along, and the Seduction of the Innocent, and it went back to just pretty plain Jane. I mean, it was the last. Number 2 here was the last code issue of that title. So I can't give you a synopsis of the story because I haven't read it, obviously, but I can tell you the historic value I think is really cool, and to me that's a big part of my collecting, as I love the history of it. So Phantom Lady number 2.
All right. And
So, growing up, I really liked getting grab bags for books. Used to be you could get a good thing out of grab bags every now and then. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore until we start doing them here in the store. Then they'll be amazing.
Yes.
So, a couple years ago, we went to a store, me and some friends, and I picked up a blind short box. A short box full of comics that I didn't know what was in it. And I'm like, this sounds like fun. This was the first summer I was working here at the store, too, and reorganizing the back room. So once I got home and opened up this box, I saw all the same crap books that I was sorting in the back room. And I thought for a second someone might have played a joke on me and planted this box full of books that I was sorting. I think I got one book I was really looking for out of that.
The whole short box?
Yeah. And then a bunch of crazy filler stuff.
Right.
So out of that box was a book called Shatter. This book promotes itself as being the first comic book produced with artwork from a computer. This art looks like it was printed out on a dot matrix printer. It looks like somebody had to tear the sides off of these pages when they put it out.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I get around to reading this book, I think I'm going to go cross-eyed because it is so obnoxious to look at.
It's pretty. The print is pretty low quality on the images.
Yeah, this isn't modern CGI.
No,
this is 2D artwork that someone scanned in or something and ran through some, an equivalent of a Photoshop filter from the 80s, whatever that would have been.
Right.
And it just looks, I think
computers
were the future.
I think it was actually computer art generated.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just what it looked like at that
Yeah.
time. So, I remember
But
that book.
When was it published?
In the 80s sometime. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. We have some in the back room. I could go look, but I'm not gonna.
No.
But
He'll get to it in his read file. That's the point.
And I have a few issues of this, so this is going to be a hard weekend probably getting through this stuff. But that's one of the crazy things on my list,
All right.
my pile.
All right.
Mike's
Mike's lame list number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not lame.
Sure it is.
No, okay.
Okay.
Hey, I wish Hail to your beans.
I have 3 things in my read pile.
I wish I only had
That's
3
why I
things in my
limited
read
to 3.
pile.
And the other one is another book we talked about, issue 1. The only other thing, one of the 3 things I have in my read pile is Heroes in Crisis number 2, which I know Dan's feeling about that. I won't repeat because this is a non-explicit podcast, but his 3-word review of that title. So I do want to read that again. I mean, kind of try to feel better about that, but I do want to. I'm like, all right, these are limited things. Surely I can read these, read these many issues. So I do have the second issue. Did you ever check out the second issue after?
We need to talk about that after.
Okay.
we record.
All right. Okay. All right.
All right. So the next thing I have is I have the first 12 issues of Alpha Flight, the John Byrne Alpha Flight, sitting in my Now, I've read these before, but it has been a long time since I've read them. Every once in a while, I just get a wild hair. It's like I want to go back and reread something that I've read previously. So I just remember these being really, really good. Of course, John Byrne is Canadian, so he has a heart for Canadian characters. So I just, plus the artwork is going to be tremendous in it. Characters actually die and things happen here, so it's a pretty serious story. So John Byrne, Alpha Flight, Canada. What the heck?
There you go.
So who are the creators of Alpha Flight?
Well, they actually, came out in Alpha Flight like 120, or excuse me, X-Men 120 is like the first appearance of Alpha Flight, and of course Guardian predated that. So I guess Guardian would be a Claremont creation. Claremont. I'm trying to remember if that was with Cockrum or if that was already over to Byrne at that point.
I feel like it would have been a thing Byrne kind of championed.
Yeah,
I can't speak to it for sure.
Yeah, I can't say 100%, but I would kind of agree with you. I think Cochran was earlier on because he was like the 94 through. I just can't remember how far he got in before it switched over to Byrne.
If only there was a way to look this stuff up.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure it would be Byrne, and that would make sense. And there's stories like from that. Like Giant Size X-Men, 1 and issue 94, where there was actually talk of killing Wolverine, and again, apocryphal is one of the reasons why. It's because Wolverine was a Canadian, John Byrne didn't want to kill off one of the few Canadians. That was, of course, that was, around that time frame. If he had any involvement, because that was still Cochran Claremont at that point. Byrne wasn't on that book, but maybe he was fighting for that character in the background or something like that. So, but anyway, it's just something that appeals to me, and I always liked those characters when I was reading that title off the shelf. Not too far into it coming out.
Well, it was groundbreaking in more than one way. So I think that's a good pick. Yeah.
Round 3.
Back to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. A little bit more contemporary than Phantom Lady #2. It's the collected Batman White Knight.
There you go.
By Sean Michael Murphy. I'm only halfway through it, and it shouldn't really count as to read, but I'm not finished. So all I can say is that I heard a lot of good things about it, and it's everything that was said and more so. I don't normally pick up a lot of, Elseworld or, out of continuity stuff with Batman because there's so much. And but this was worth the recommendation. And actually, I didn't even buy it. A guy I know out in Utah loaned it to me. And I'm telling you, if this kind of could double even for recommended reading, come to the store and buy this trade. You won't be disappointed. I don't care if you know all kinds of stuff about Batman or nothing.
Yeah.
You will love it.
You didn't have Tyler texting you periodically about this like I did?
He's been off talk. Yeah, when it comes to that stuff, I kind of have to put the brakes on. But yeah, Batman White Knight.
For me, I'm trying to think. Okay, so due to my busy October with Inktober and other things going on, I've got pretty behind on my current reading, new issues coming out. So I've got back to Detective Comics. I'm pretty much behind on all of James Robinson's new run on the book. Mm-hmm. I just read the first issue this morning, but again, Detective's bi-weekly right now. So there's quite a few issues coming out that I just haven't gotten to yet. And it was during 1 year later, he wrote Batman back then too, and it was a Two-Face story, which is what he's doing now. And that was a really good story, so I was looking forward to this. I think I mentioned this on a previous previews episode when we saw this was coming out. But that's something I'm looking forward to reading is his detective run. And we know from last month's solicitations that Pete Tomasi and Doug Mock are going to be taking over Detective leading into 1000, so I know we're just going to have this couple-month window of James Robinson's run on here, so I'm looking forward to a good story out of that.
All right, for my third and final one, there's a little bit more substantial here. I do have, I had been recommending this to several people and who have ended up picking up a trade, and then with the Captain Marvel movie coming out and the rumor that looks like it's not true that Jude Law, is that who it is? And I was going to pay was rumored to play Marvel,
Yeah.
the original Captain Marvel. Okay, I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but this is a trade. It's an epic collection just of Jim Starlin's Captain Marvel saga, and I had recommended, I sold several of these just based on the fact that I was recommending it. It's just like, I really need to read this again because
Right.
this was like some of my favorite stuff when I was, so it's just like the nostalgia maybe motivate me to start reading again, and see, does this hold up, I mean, and everything else like that. So I do, it is one of those epic collections. You get pretty much the whole run. It was one of the first kind of space operatic, we were talking about the
Cosmic, Marvel
cosmic stuff earlier, and that it all starts off with the Iron Man issue. The first issue is Iron Man 55, which is the first appearance of Thanos, first appearance of Drax the Destroyer, not as we know him now, but old cheesy, Drax, which is my Drax.
And the Blood Brothers.
Yeah, and the Blood Brothers. Right. So I do want to go back and reread that stuff and see if, and just kind of, wax nostalgic for a bit, and just because I love that stuff back when I was, a teenager. So that's in my pile.
This was tough to narrow it down because there's lots of things that I would like to mention. I'm just gonna go ahead and say a few of them. I'm reading early Tomb of Dracula right now. It's I'm working on one of those trades, and there's a guy I met at a convention last summer or summer before last, and he was into Ultraverse. So I just found a stack of Ultraverse books and handed them to him. I said, "You just give me something that's a good read that I should read. I don't care what it is. Just give me a good read for this book because those are not particularly valuable." So he gave me, was it Seven Soldiers of Victory? He gave me that complete that complete series. I've got that sitting in my to read pile. Dan had before mentioned Batman Gates of Gotham. Of course, I got Avengers Forever in there, but the last one I'm going to mention is I have Jim, Son of Saturn, issues 1 through 12. So that was a Gene Colan artwork. It was actually originally supposed to be a Martian Manhunter story, and I guess it just didn't fit with the character for some reason. So we had the telepathic, alien interacting with the young kid. I had fond memories of that as a child. I thought I want to revisit that story. So it is. I've managed to track down all 12 issues through buying various collections, and now I've got a complete set and set aside waiting to be read. So.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So that is just a glimpse into their read piles, but you saw my entire read pile. All right, let's move past that. So anyway.
Hey, I wish mine were only 3 books. This is getting to be a slog, getting through some of this stuff.
Okay, the next topic we're going to move on into is what is your favorite out-of-continuity story by either Marvel or DC? Dan, you want to start us off on that one?
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite, but one that's really up there that I don't think you hear about enough is Superman: The Dark Side. This was an Elseworlds that DC produced. They did several Superman Elseworlds, which are just sort of based on what if Superman came to Gotham? You've got Speeding Bullet, where he basically becomes that version of Batman, things like that. This one in particular is, what if Superman landed on Apokolips? So after the destruction of Krypton, his rocket gets redirected to Apokolips, I think intentionally by Desaad, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I read the story. But Darkseid adopts him and raises him, and eventually he becomes like a gladiator. And he's got this really cool kind of black suit, and an S that's almost like a lightning bolt on his chest. And he's got like a costume with like a full face mask and everything. It's a really kind of darker take on Superman. And again, it's like, it's back to the nature-nurture question. It's like, would he be the hero if he was raised on Apokolips? And eventually Darkseid, as he does, decides to invade Earth. So Superman is at the forefront of this invasion. He has this super powerful guy that works for him now. And, again, I'm a little fuzzy on the details because it's been so long since I've read this, but I feel like during the course of the story, he still meets Lois Lane, and I think that kind of turns him. He realizes, like, hey, this isn't the right thing to be doing. I'm not supposed to be.
That sounds a lot like FF 48 through 50 that we talked about in the previous podcast.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's some influence there. There you go. But yeah, I'm not sure if this story is still in trade.
Have you ever heard it? Are you aware of it?
No, it sounds like the Superman
thing.
Red Sun on steroids. I mean,
a
what's
little
worse
bit.
than communist Russia?
Yeah, exactly.
Darkseid.
Again, another Elseworlds, though, kind of following that formula, but just in Russia.
I love that, though.
Yeah.
Who are the creators? Oh, sorry.
Man,
You can look it up.
I'll look it up.
Look it up.
Sounds like I had something I'd like.
it's worth and the thing is too, this was sort of late 90s. There was just so much stuff coming out back then, and DC was doing a lot of Elseworlds and a lot of miniseries and different things, so I think it kind of got lost in the shuffle. I know they did end up making a couple action figures based on Superman from that story too, so there is one of the the black armored version, which I think goes for quite a bit now if you can find it. But yeah, it's a really cool story, and again, I don't think it gets enough praise that it probably should.
What'd you say? Superman Dark Side?
Yeah, Superman the Dark Side.
The Dark Side.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
As a kid, you
that
know how
sounds
I
really
pronounce
cool.
Darkseid?
Darkseid.
Darkseid.
Yeah, I think a bunch of us did.
Yeah.
Well, there's a story, going around about some young kid at a convention with Kirby, and he goes up to Kirby and starts going on and on and on about Darkseid. And here's the creator, and the story is Kirby never corrects him, and when he's talking to that kid, it's Darkseid. So it's just kind of one of those cool things that you hear. Again. Could be apocryphal.
Yeah.
That's the word of the day, folks, is
apocryphal.
That is a great story, whether it's true.
I hope that's what you
Yeah.
hope it's true.
Yeah.
You hope it's true.
You know what? No one's going to mispronounce Apocalypse.
I can only spell it
Yeah.
Nice, good one.
Yeah. Well, Dan said something about this was an Elseworld story.
Yeah.
So I think I'll just jump in with mine. And mine was what is now retconned, I guess, into being considered the first Elseworld story. And that's Gotham by Gaslight, which is a Batman story. It's and basically what it is it takes place in the late 19th century, 1890 something, possibly like that. And basically what it amounts to is Bruce Wayne. This is all taking place in that time frame. Has traveled to Europe, studying under Freud, blah blah blah, all this stuff. And then he comes back, encounters a family friend, on the journey back, and about the time that Bruce gets back into Gotham, and this universe's version of the Joker's created, and there's gangs like running roughshod over the streets. So Bruce takes on the guise of Batman. Becomes the vigilante because he's revisiting his parents' death and all this stuff. It's all part of that, just set in a different time setting. And then at the same time, these killings start taking place in Gotham City. So basically, what it amounts to is a time setting. It's basically Jack the Ripper in Gotham City, and with Batman being accused of being the Ripper. And and it's just a kind of a crime story.
Yeah,
like
because
that.
Bruce Wayne can't account for his nights.
Exactly. Right.
And he shows back in town at approximately the same time that the killing
Yeah.
starts. So
Starts.
it's a little
And then I think in there like a knife or something found in Wayne Manor or something like that implicates him even further. So it's all this stuff, so it won't spoil the ending of it. So read it, check it out.
I'll say this about the ending. If you've seen the animated movie they've done, it's a different ending
yes.
than the original novel.
yes.
So yeah, they changed who Jack the Ripper is in the cartoon as opposed to who it was in the original book.
Okay.
So you have to read
read it,
one and watch the other, so you get two different stories.
Yeah, we won't spoil it.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, good story.
I tell you what, that's something they should add to the Black Label.
It's
Gotham by Gaslight.
They probably will.
I
I can't imagine that
don't
they
know why you
won't.
wouldn't, especially now with the cartoon and everything.
Yeah, they're taking their time with all the Black Label
Yeah.
titles. There's no rush to get new stuff out on that label. So
But yeah, just the stuff they're rebranding with that, I feel like that's one that should definitely be a part of that line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Agreed. So,
doesn't
Mike
matter.
Scott, you want to wrestle for it? Who's next?
Fight.
all right. So since we don't have a Marvel choice so far, I'm gonna go with Earth X. So I think the most appealing part of Earth X to me is we have this kind of an alternate version of Captain America, a little bit more disenfranchised, but what basically the Earth X story is like the reason why we have superpowered heroes on Earth is because Earth is basically an egg for a celestial, and at some point that celestial is going to birth forth, and all of the superheroes are there to protect the celestial egg from attack from outside forces. That's why we have all the superpowered beings on this planet that you don't see on other planets. So it's just a very interesting take on superheroes. You see super versions of things that you would happen. Thing Alicia Masters get married and they have kids, and there's Reed Richards as going around in the Doctor Doom armor, and it's just a very interesting future take. on the characters and specifically the again the portrayal of Captain America in that story, him also being my favorite character, is also just appeals to me on that story. So it's a nice alternate version of Cap.
I really want to read that. That's
sounds
two
good.
of your picks. I've read yours, but I haven't read you guys'. So. Oh no, I haven't read yours either. That's all three.
See, you got new stuff to read.
Yeah.
So real quick
man.
though, so Earth X kind of came out in the wake of another out of continuity story with DC, Kingdom Come, and Alex Ross did kind of shepherd this. He did character designs, did the covers and things, and we got some really nice art by Jean-Paul Leon. Do you wish Alex Ross would have painted this book?
Do I wish?
Yeah,
you're-
when you
No.
read it.
No, because I am actually not a huge Alex Ross fan.
Oh, okay. I mean, I like the art,
Yeah.
but at the
Yeah.
time, I thought it was weird that he wasn't.
Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
it's a bigger series,
Yeah.
and he's still doing character designs and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm actually not a huge Alex Ross fan. To me, it's he's looking at stuff and painting, so it's a little bit different take. It's not a pure from his mind art.
I've heard he does
form.
do that sometimes.
He does that a
though.
lot. I mean,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
actually show the photos
Right.
of the people, the models that he
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
that he is painting.
Well, I've heard
Murray.
I've heard he can sketch from
Shazam.
memory though too. He,
I'm certain that
So,
he
yeah.
can. I am certain that he can. But there's more to my dislike of Alex Ross than just that. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay.
But I will also say in response to your, it actually put me off from reading that book.
Oh, really?
You know, because I just came, like I said before, Kingdom Come's what got me back into comics. When I heard he was basically doing the same thing for Marvel, I'm
Right.
like, awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I went, you see the covers, open up the art. I need to go back and look at it again because I'm like, nope.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
I'm not trying to put down this story. It's a great story. I
Right.
really enjoy it.
Uh-huh.
Another weird kind of side note thing is the way they presented this story. Was back in the day, the way they promoted this was a sketchbook in Wizard magazine, and the story there
I've got that
was
one.
Wizard asked him to do his version of Kingdom Come for Marvel.
Uh-huh.
That's not what happened.
Right.
Marvel asked him to do the Kingdom Come version for Marvel, and they kind of slid it in. Wizard kind of helped out with the promotion of that book, so it wouldn't
Okay.
look like they were just straight up
So-
aping Kingdom Come.
So,
But it's still a great book either way. I don't care.
right.
You know, just do this book
Yeah.
because it's a really good read.
Gotcha.
And no spoilers or anything, but there's so many cool concepts in that book.
Yeah.
You know.
Right. So yeah, I need to add that to my read.
Yeah, and I
I
really
do too. I do too. And I don't, as much as I loved him in Kingdom Come, and I love his covers and his posters and his, he I don't know that his storytelling
He's
is
not that great
is
telling
no,
story, I
he's
think.
it's so I'm not put off. Although unless you are comparing, Kingdom Come to it and thinking you're going to
Yes.
get the exact same thing, I can see we're going, oh man.
Yeah, this
But-
is not what
and I
was
don't
looking
think
Yeah.
that's a detriment to the story. You
Yeah,
know, I think
no.
it's
I'm
still
just
its
saying
own
where
thing.
I was at the
Oh,
time,
for sure.
You
But
know, because
everything's-
I was
yeah.
probably due to what you said in Wizard.
Yeah.
'cause I mean, I thought that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So then when I went to pick it up and the interiors looked like it did, I'm like, this
But if you, yeah.
Probably the big difference, I guess, between Kingdom Come and Earth X is that in Kingdom Come you get future versions of the main DC heroes, and it's kind of actually them as if they'd gone through their life in a more
20
positive
years later, yeah.
fashion.
Right.
Whereas the characters in Marvel, they're almost all gone more negative from their views. It's a more negative take on him. I mean, you have Reed Richards in Doctor Doom's armor. He doesn't stretch anymore. Well, there's a little
Right, yeah,
thing about
yeah.
that. I mean, it's
Spoilers.
yeah. So there's a whole little scene with that. I mean, everybody's super powered in Earth X instead of just
What's
being
the
select.
significance of the X?
I feel like that's kind of a spoiler for
Okay,
the story.
okay.
but-
Because when I see Earth X, I think of Quality Heroes. Whenever they came
Oh,
out,
yeah,
when DC
it
acquired
ain't
them, and that
that.
was part of the multiverse. So yeah,
Yeah, it's not
Freedom
that
Fighters.
and it actually became there was Earth X, Paradise X, and Universe X, and I've actually only read Earth X. I haven't read either of the
I
other
started
two
to read
stories.
Universe, I think, and I never picked up Paradise.
Yeah, and I
So,
can't.
yeah,
Maybe I had the order
need to
wrong,
go-
probably.
I can't remember,
yeah,
man.
But yeah.
It's been so long since this stuff came out.
But actually, I met Bill Reinhold at a convention. I actually had him do a sketch of the Earth X
Oh, yeah.
cap because that's I just thought it was a pretty. I mean, it's him wearing a literal flag. So it's.
What'd you think of the scar?
Yeah.
It's a nice take on Cap. So yeah.
Michael.
Justice League the Nail came out in the late '90s. Elseworlds umbrella title, and to me it represented everything I love about superhero comics. I mean,
the lack of Superman.
Yeah, well, no, just everything that happened because of the lack of Superman. Now,
Right.
Of course, I love if comic literature has a reference from true literature, like a poem. I think it adds a little something to it. So the poem where this comes from is, for want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the knight was lost. For want of a knight, the battle was lost. So it was a kingdom was lost, all for the want of a nail. Of course, the nail represents Superman, because Ma and Paul Kent, driving down that dirt road, had a nail. That gave him a flat tire.
Oh, wow.
And they never got baby Kal-El. That's the basic premise.
I'd never heard of this story before.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
It's Alan Davis, right?
Alan Davis, Mark Farmer. I was lucky enough to meet them last year at C2E2 and have them sign my
cool.
editions, and I just to me, it's one of my prized possessions. I mean, it's one of them deals where you think, okay, if there's a fire, which comics would I grab first? and now that it's, I mean, obviously I could always get another copy, but the signed editions, it would be in
for
that
sure,
stack of, okay, this is what I would grab first. So it's a consummate superhero comic book. It brings in so many characters from the DC universe. I love that type of story,
It also feels like he's referencing a specific era of DC, too. With
Sure,
like
it's-
the character designs and things
yes,
like that. More of a
definitely,
classic version.
Yeah, Silver Age. Definitely Silver Age feel to it. And then it was around that time that JLA Year One came out too, by Mark Waid and Barry Kitson. So it had that same feel to it. So a lot of nostalgia involved. So yeah, anybody gets a chance, buy that trade from Mike No here at Campus Comics.
I added that to my list here. Add Superman: The Dark Side to my list. I'm gonna
Yeah,
try to
that's
track
when
those
I
down.
was. That's when I was buying every JLA book. So I picked those up
And
when
there
they
were
came
lots
out.
of them.
There was a lot.
JLA colon. Finally, I remember telling Dennis, "Don't let me buy anything with a colon behind the main title."
Did you guys have any alternates you wanted to name off?
Oh man, I probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
DC's done just by themselves doing so many out of continuity stories.
But I mean, and then a lot of them are really, really good. With those
Yeah.
out of continuity stories,
Yeah.
they can tell sometimes better stories because they don't have to worry about.
Be beholden
Yes.
to
Yeah.
Any of those late '90s Green Lantern, when Kyle Rayner was Green Lantern, and they did a lot of alternate Elseworlds titles with him, I thought were good. I can't remember any of the titles off the top of my head, and I bought a lot of them as well. Chris Moeller did a Justice League book. What was that called?
League of One, the Wonder Woman story?
A League of One,
where
yes.
she's fighting the dragon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy, the art in that. I mean, he wrote it as well, but
Yeah,
the
they're
art
painted.
is gorgeous. So that's an alternate, I guess. A League of One.
I mean, Kingdom Come is kind of the obvious
Yeah,
one. We've
yeah,
talked
we
about
talked
that on
about
here
it before.
before. That's
Red Sun's
sort-
another good
yeah.
alternate one. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some more Marvel ones.
Right.
Well, I had.
good.
I mean, I had Marvels on my list, which is kind of an
Oh,
alternate
yeah.
origin
Yeah.
for the Marvel Universe 4-issue series. Kurt Busiek story from the eyes of a reporter. I mean, it's really, really good. You can't talk about these and not talk about Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, yeah.
And I even actually enjoyed DK3: The Master Race. I may be in the minority on that one, but I actually enjoyed that.
I think I would have liked it, but I've lost interest because of the
Takes a
time
long
between.
time.
Yeah,
so I
okay.
may get it in one big collected edition and
one-
like it. Yeah.
And then Sandman. I mean,
Oh,
Sandman
gosh.
is really kind of technically outside of, and especially the first trade of Sandman, where not all, but a lot of DC characters are there, and it's like how they see Morpheus. It's kind of interesting how he has his interactions, which I guess are, being a Vertigo title, and Dan has spoken of this before. It really was outside of continuity, even though Etrigan and Martian Manhunter are showing up in those stories. So
Well,
those are my alts.
just as we're talking about this, I'm just remembering what you said on a previous episode as far as like why there aren't that many what ifs anymore, because Marvel just does everything in continuity now. They do the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
They do the crazy what if just in the monthly books now.
Well, I would say the opposite is there is no longer any Marvel continuity. There used to be
Yeah.
tight continuity when Stan Lee was
Right.
at the helm. You had very, very tight continuity, and that continued through Roy Thomas. And now they're to the
Yes.
age. They're to that age where they're like DC was pre-crisis, where it's
Yeah.
just
It's a
gotten
free-for-all.
it's gotten too much, and they need to clean it up. But they're just
Yeah.
they're just not
I
going
really
to.
like that
Yeah.
what if where Cap's in charge of Hydra. Guess what?
Yeah.
It's not a what if.
Yeah, no, yeah. What if Jane Foster had found Thor's hammer?
exactly.
Whoop, I don't
Yeah,
want it.
yeah.
You know?
Oh, that was a great run too. I bought all those.
Oh, that was so
Oh
good.
yeah, I guess that's kind of how it plays out now with Marvel. Having said that, though, the recent What Ifs they released, the Thor, What If Thor Was Raised by the Frost Giants, was a really good one-shot issue. So that's a more recent out-of-continuity story that was pretty good.
And they're bringing back What If when there's
Yeah.
What If in last month's previews. So
Got a
So
few of
something to look
those
forward
going
to.
on.
It's awesome.
All right. Well, I'm going to shake up the order here because Scott talked about something. What? I don't know. Let's see. Couple more topics here. I don't know how you all feel, but let's go ahead and just jump into recommend a trade.
you don't want to say that for the last and do
Yeah,
the,
okay, let's do that.
Let's end on a positive note.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Okay, this is the one that Mike probably regrets suggesting. So of course I picked it, but no, it's from my, basically the reason I picked it's from my perspective. And his topic was what needs to happen for the industry, the comics industry, for sustainability within the comics industry,
Right.
what to keep it going as we know it. As you know, like we've talked about previously, the movies are wildly successful. You know what I mean? But what do we need? What needs to be done? If any of you have any opinions, I certainly do. About what needs to happen to keep the comic book industry sustainable. Do
Who wants to start?
you have anything, Mike?
I racked my brain on this all the way down here, and it doesn't take much to rack my brain. But I think I've come to the conclusion that instead of looking at this from a consumer angle, which is what I was doing for the first 20 minutes, is think of it from those that provide readers like us, consumers like us, the opportunity to read these in a serial fashion, not going through some subscription service where you're going to get a batch every month and you're going to be spoiled by the internet if you are even online at all. Yeah. And I don't like that. I like the serial aspect of reading comics. So that to me means the big two publishers need to recognize the value of brick and mortar stores. I know that's a very abstract way of describing it, but they need to recognize that value and then give these stores, like Mike's here at Campus Comics, it's due, so that these stores want this industry to succeed. It's not just about bringing home the bacon. It's about, this is a passion for many owners. So that's the best way I can sum it up, is make the two big publishers who have all the cards, them and Diamond, but the publishers really can make this happen, I think. And I'm sorry I can't be more articulate than that, but that's the way I feel.
Mm-hmm. Dan, have you got anything?
I think the hard answer that no one really wants to say out loud is that we obviously need more Walmart exclusive comic books. Because that's what's going to turn the industry around. That's what's going to really fix everything.
Hold it back from Dan.
Oh, I'm laughing. I'm laughing at the nonsensical nature of this. I know.
I mean, that's the thing. It is a business, and that's what people don't always think about. It's like people ask why there aren't certain comics or why this isn't being made. It's like if people were buying them, it would be made. That's a thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, with comics, you vote with your dollars.
Yeah.
That's not always the answer we want to think about or acknowledge, but that's the truth of the situation. Sure. Mm-hmm. And what Mike was speaking to of the serialized nature, that's what's kept the industry afloat for so many years. For 80 years or whatever. It's that people are coming in every month and buying these books. Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, we're talking about how popular these movies are now and how people that don't read comics go see these movies. That's really what got me into collecting was the 89 Batman movie. Mm-hmm. I saw this as a kid. I'm like, I want more of this. And at the time, that meant comic books. Now, though, maybe that means the Arkham Asylum games. Right. Maybe this meant Batman the Animated Series. Mm-hmm. There's just so many other forms that this entertainment takes now. Mm-hmm. It's not just solely comic books like it used to be.
Right.
So it's like, how do you direct these energies and this desire of people coming here? And a lot of this is on the publishers. Mm-hmm. Look at what we had this last year with Black Panther.
Yes.
How many guys came into the store who've never been in here before the movie, wanting Black Panther anything?
Yes.
They didn't just want comics. They said any merchandise you had. Mm-hmm. What did we have to sell them?
Nothing.
That's the thing. Like, they did a very poor job promoting that movie ahead of time.
There's stuff now.
There's stuff now, almost
Yeah.
a year later, we're
Right.
going to get, which is ridiculous. In
Right.
this
Promote this.
era of synergy,
Uh-huh.
and as many cogs are in this wheel of Marvel now, how do you not do that?
Right.
Were they really thinking a black superhero movie is not going to be successful?
Yeah.
They made a good Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Uh-huh.
How did they not think that Black Panther was going to be at least a successful film?
Steel.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Meteor Man. But you know what I mean? It's just like, Marvel's cracked the code on that stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's just like, it feels like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. Like, the
Right.
machine has gotten too big with some of this stuff.
And I think too, Marvel's doing some course correction now, but Marvel.
But are we
meaning-
going to get those people back in here?
Right, exactly.
you know.
But yeah, it's kind of too late now because what Marvel was doing is a hugely successful movies, and people would come in. I want Iron Man. Well, do you realize that the Iron Man book is now being led by a teenage black girl?
Right.
I like Thor. Oh,
It's a
that
female-
remember?
female
Yeah.
Thor,
And again,
yeah.
these are good stories,
yeah,
but is this what people
absolutely.
are wanting
Exactly.
when they come in after
Captain
this?
America. Oh, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Or-
don't want to bait and switch. You
Yeah.
want it to be
Yeah.
representative
People come
of
in looking
right.
for that stuff.
Look
and
at
you can't give them that.
look what's going on with Aquaman right now.
Right.
Have you you got the Kelly Sue DeConnick run coming
Uh-huh.
up. The promo image is a shirtless, long-haired, bearded Aquaman with
Yes.
a wave cresting behind him.
Uh-huh.
It looks exactly like the Jason Momoa
Yes.
trailers and
Yeah.
art for that.
And even some of the variant covers this week look very suspiciously like Jason Momoa.
Yeah, exactly.
on them.
DC
So they're-
knows where they're going with
Yeah.
that.
But my thing on that is, I want to see the comics in the films. I don't want to see the films put
Right.
into the comics.
Sure.
And I feel like
Right.
we're getting more of the. We should be seeing a
This-
more closer representation,
the movies
which
are
which is
guiding
like
shit.
which is like where we actually have. We're going to see Aquaman in the orange and green. I mean,
Right.
supposedly that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's in the trailer.
And
so we better.
So but so was Hulk in that scene in
know.
Infinity War, and he
Right.
wasn't there.
Yeah,
so
if that shot is the last shot of the movie, I'm gonna be upset. Because I get a feeling that might be what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
So what we have are the publishers trying to
Right.
cater to the movie fans, but those are not the ones that are still at the comic book
Here's-
shops
right,
buying the
exactly.
comics.
I think that
Yeah.
that is how you can see that and how that is so true is when Marvel went from when the intro to the movies went from the flipping the comic pages
Right.
to images from the previous
movies.
movies,
Mhm.
and
that- and
that
that's-
hurt my heart a little bit when I
Oh,
seen
yeah.
that.
And that's Kevin Feige breaking off from Marvel,
Oh,
to where he doesn't report to the Marvel chain of command now. He
Disney.
Disney or
is under the call of Disney.
yeah.
And that's the thing too. And I know other guys in the store have said this for years. How hard would it be before this movie starts to throw up a little thing on screen of check your local comic shop, throw up
Right.
the comic book locator
Yes.
number.
Hey,
Yes.
dance
You know?
with the one who brung you, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's the local comic book shop that is
And
kind
folks,
of
that's
built
a
this
Southern
popularity.
Illinois saying.
That's why
Yeah.
I keep harping on. Dan joked about the Marvel or the Walmart exclusive books,
Right.
And that's why that's kind of at first I was okay with it. Now, what am I going to do? It's
Right.
not going to be a hugely profitable category for Walmart, so I don't think it's going to last.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, for 30 some odd years, stores like this one have carried that torch. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
And just
exactly.
to be thrown under the bus, you know what I mean, or kind of feel like it, by the publishers,
Right.
and the distributor. Hopefully nobody from Diamond listens to this. but I don't think they're unaware of how people feel, And did you have something? Because I'm.
No, you keep. I've got tons of stuff to say,
Okay.
so you go as long as you want.
So to me, one of the things that needs to happen is Mike and I, Atchison and I were having this discussion earlier, is, do I want to be the only comic shop in the area? Of course I do, but that's not the truth. And competition is always good.
Yeah.
Competition is always good for the consumer. And then ultimately, if it's good for the consumer, it's good for the business itself. So, I really think for sustainability of this, I really think somehow we need to get Diamond Stranglehold off of distribution of comics.
Right.
There needs to be an alternative to create the need to serve the stores better, not only from the publishers, but also from the distributors, to do better service. I'm happy, with my Diamond service. there's little things, but I mean, I've not had major things, and for the most part, I don't deal with what I hear a lot of other shops dealing with of just simply not getting the books they ordered.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that tends to happen, not to happen. But I think number one, I think that cannot do anything but be good, for the comic book industry, to have multiple sources that you can get this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, because groups like alliances, but
Yes.
that's one of the whenever I talk to comic shops and they don't get product in, a lot of times there were alliance customers and they don't get it. So it's like, well, this didn't show up. We'll get it in a couple of weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yep, but it's gone. There's no. The other thing, and this may sound stupid from a retailer point of view, but both the big two, because independent things like Image and they're their own thing, but the big two, Marvel and DC, what they really need to do, in my opinion, is cut down the number of titles.
yes, that's on my list.
There are too many titles. To them, to bean counter kind of guys, it seems like, well, the more books you have out there, the more you're going to sell,
Right.
But for the most part, it's a very niche market, and what happens or has happened in the 1990s, what happened is just this huge glut of titles that are coming out there, and eventually people have bought all they can afford to buy.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, so if you just have to buy so many issues of all these books to get a story, what's going to happen? You're going to stop buying, and you're probably not going to just drastically cut your list back. A lot of people are just going to stop buying.
Right.
So I really think, those days of having, I really think both companies should have 20 titles. You know what I mean?
And that might even be too many.
Probably too many.
I mean, okay,
Max.
when DC, their first reboot, the new 52, why did they choose the number 52? Because there were 52 DC titles, which is absurd. I mean, exactly what, Mike's saying is that, most readers, I suspect, read 5 to 10 titles, per month, if that. And there's just too many out there that they just can't choose to pick up. Whenever I was, going back to the 80s, when we talked about New Universe, quite a while back, I had quite a few books that I was reading at that time. I was 14, 15 years old, and New Universe was coming out, and it was 8 new titles, but at 14, 15, I had the budget. Oh, you know what? It's at 50 cents a book. That was adding $4 a month to my total. That's more than, that's one book now. I could read all the New Universe titles plus everything that I wanted to read. It was affordable. And now with the price being as high as it is, it's just not affordable to add 8 books.
Even not that long ago with Marvel's Ultimate Universe. For a long time, it was 4 books.
Yes.
Right.
I'm not a big Marvel reader, but, Ultimate Spider-Man started getting really good reviews. I picked it up. I really liked it. Ultimate X-Men, when Mark Millar started writing that, was really strong. I'm like, you know what? I can get this whole pocket of the Marvel Universe, and I can afford 4 extra books a month. And they were, for a long time, they were really quality books. And so I bought every Ultimate book for a long time. And it was nice just having this. Like, this is everything.
Right.
This is its own continuity. It's really fun to just be able to read everything here. And I was kind of getting a condensed version of the Marvel Universe for a while.
Right.
Again, can't do that now, and the Ultimate line's gone.
Now, you just look at an event. You know what I mean? It's just like, take for instance Spider-Geddon. Is an ongoing Spider-Man event right now. Not an ongoing event, but it's just like you've got the main title, then you've got, it's a Vault of Spiders, Spider-Force, Spider-Girls. You know what I mean? You have
Spider-Gwen, Silk, Miles Morales Spider-Man. It just goes on and on. Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Spectacular.
You've got 8, 10
overwhelming.
titles tying into just one event, to one pocket character of the universe. And that doesn't even include Amazing Spider-Man. It's not even part of that.
Yeah.
The other flagship title, Amazing.
Yeah, and again, I think this kind of comes back to, you hear consumers complain about this stuff, but again, you vote with your dollars.
Exactly.
If you don't buy this, they'll see it's not profitable. But the thing is, people are getting them. There's completionists. That's, the mindset the industry has kind of created over the years, and people pick them up, so they're going to
I'm
keep
guilty of
doing
that
them.
myself.
Yeah, we've all done it.
There's no way I would have gotten all of the Drowned Earth or the Wonder Woman JLA Dark if I wasn't like, just compulsive in my buying with those titles. And turns out that JLA Dark Wonder Woman story wasn't really that good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So kick myself for it, but you're right, Dan.
Yeah.
You know, but you know what the thing of it is, you're voting with your dollars, but that hurts. It doesn't just hurt. It doesn't even,
That's the thing.
I mean, you try not to hurt. You feel loyal to a store. You feel loyal
sure.
to a brand. You feel loyal to a character.
the other part of that is too, though. There's such a glut of Marvel and DC books that it's like, I know there are indie books out there I would want to read.
Yeah.
But again, I only have X amount of money to spend, and so
and X amount of time.
and I've been buying Batman my whole life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick up the Batman books.
Yeah.
But then it's like, I couldn't even tell you what it is, but I know there's probably a good indie book out there I'm not reading just because I've spent my money.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't have the extra to give another $4 book or $5 book or whatever.
If I was more disciplined, I'd buy the Saga trades. I bought the first one.
Yeah, maybe that's
great
it,
stories,
Yeah.
but I'm not, because I'm compelled to, to buy these
Right.
DC titles, and I really wish I needed.
And I'm sure that's part of their concern is that if DC's not putting out 52 titles,
Your
then
dollars are going elsewhere.
Yeah.
okay,
Oh, for sure.
instead of moving, they drop. I'm trying to think of I can't even come up with I'm looking here for like a DC title that maybe is a low seller, or okay, so I'll switch over to Marvel. So like Silver Surfer was a low seller, even though it was a very popular book.
Yeah.
When they drop that title, well, what happens if instead of picking up another Marvel title, you pick up a DC title or an Image
for sure.
title or a Dark
Oh yeah,
Horse
it's
title?
definitely calculated
So,
on their part.
yeah.
Right. Oh, for sure.
But I think that people who typically read Marvel are primarily Marvel, and people who read DC are primarily DC. They read some of the other titles, so if they're if they have good crossovers, then they're going to see Spider-Man showing up in an issue of Avengers, and they'll say they'll be reading Spider-Man and Avengers, and they can choose from that smaller pool, and they'll get more, and you'll see each individual book's sales numbers go up. I mean, because a book that sells 100,000 copies now is huge. It just doesn't happen hardly anymore. And we used to, back in the Spawn 1 and X-Men 1 and even the X-Men titles, those were million books a month sometimes. So
Well, even back in the Golden Age too, you would see that stuff.
Oh,
yeah, I mean, there
Captain
was
Marvel, lots and lots.
Captain Marvel at its peak was selling like 4 million copies.
They'd
so-
kill for those numbers.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Oh, you
yeah.
kidding.
They'd kill
Yeah.
all of us for those numbers.
But yeah. So,
Dan mentioned something earlier that I had on my list, and it just bears repeating. Put in that. At the very end, all the Marvel guys, all the Marvel zombies, we stay till the end of those credit scenes. The very last thing after the credit scene is, hey, visit your local comic shop. That's not going to cost Marvel any money at all to put that in there. I would really love to see a scene when these post credits where one of the characters, you got Tom Holland or even Deadpool, goes into a comic book shop and starts flipping through books. That would just be so great, and they could even do a big deal about that. They could have a prize for some comic shop randomly chosen. That's where they go film it. It's really no additional cost to them. It's something that all the
to just dance with the
yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. The fewer comics I think is critical. The gimmicks we got away from the gimmicks and the variant covers and all that for a while after the collapse, and now that's revving back up again. I feel like, and that's just going to turn people off because you get those completists, and when they can't get all 100 copies of Star Wars #1, instead of just buying one copy, they quit. They just give it up because now they can't be
there's no
completists
point. I
anymore.
can't get 'em all.
Yeah, if I can't get them all, then why bother?
It blows my mind.
Yeah, and I've been guilty of that. Like I can't find a first issue of something. I'm like, I'm not going to read it now. I don't have the first issue. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you track them down. Sometimes you don't. You just move on.
And I think the last thing I have on my list, not that I won't think of something else if we keep talking about this, but there is this. They are constantly trying, instead of going with the characters that have been successful and have been around for 80 years. And it's not that I don't want Marvel and DC to come up with new characters, but they're just throwing anything out there, just hoping that it will stick sometimes. And you get completely derivative characters that are not that are just ripoffs of some of the other ones, like the character America, which is a derivative of Captain America, right? They had a big push for that character, and where's that character now?
Gone.
Now, and occasionally they get a character that sticks, like Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel. I was reading a news article today where they were talking about the writer of that. I can't even remember what her name is. You know, they were expecting that book to last 10 issues, and now they're on volume 10 of that series.
That's good.
So, I mean, we need, obviously, those new ideas, but you need to try them out someplace else instead of starting a new title to introduce a new character.
Why don't they have more anthology titles? Why don't they have more tryouts?
DC and Marvel both need to have like a main book, and that is the one where they can retain those, you know, copyrights and trademarks by just writing a new story about that instead of releasing another title for 3 or 4 or 6 issues to keep invaders. You know, we can just do that inside of the Marvel anthology can, you know, be a hey, you want to find out more of what's going on? Then this story kind of continues over here. It can be little teasers. I enjoy the free comic book day books. You know, like there was an intro for Captain America. Just the other day, I finally got around to reading last year's Stranger in Paradise 25. I am all of a sudden interested in Strangers in Paradise, and I had zero interest in that because it's anyway. That's off the topic. So, anyway, so yeah, I don't know. That's the whole list that, you know, I had come up with, but you know, and you obviously, Mike, have the most at stake in this.
Yeah, I mean, those are the things that are most important. I mean, there's other little things, you know, too, that I could go on, you know, just like, I don't know, offering returnability. You know what I mean? That used to be a thing. You know, I mean, that I don't know if many people know that, Mike. Historically, I'm sure you do, but that's the reason in the gap between when a book comes out and the cover date of that book is because that is when the book was supposed to be pulled off, strip covered, and returned to the distributor for credit. That's why that, you know, so if a book comes out in March, it's got a May date, you know, and that's when it's supposed to pull it off the shelf. And you used to be able to do that. You know, comics were part of that. You know, and then again, that's an advantage that large retailers have over shops like this, is we don't have that, but you can bet Barnes & Noble can return their books.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? If they don't sell.
That's true.
You know, so, and again, if you're, DC does limited returnability. Marvel does none returnability, but the people that do returnability frequently and pretty regularly is small publishers. IDW does returnability all the time. If you buy 10 copies, your order is 100% returnable. You know, so you buy 10 copies because you'll get your money back if they don't sell.
And I know you've talked about Image before. Image sends you incentive books from time to time that are just completely unexpected, and that's just free money in the local comic shop's pockets, because those will fetch a price, and they can make some extra money. They can make 1 or 2 of their customers extremely happy to get that very, very exclusive book as well. So
Back to Marvel real quick, and this has been a policy for quite a while now. But long term, how do you think the no overprinting has played out for them?
I can't imagine it's. I don't know. I can't
I
imagine.
I
see the upside of that.
Yeah, for larger stores,
you
know, it's probably not that big a deal. But like, have you ordered more books typically for Marvel books because of this?
No.
And you know that's what the incentive for them is.
Oh, sure. Because, you know, if you don't get it the week it comes out, basically I can't get it.
Right.
You know, what do I increase my sales? No, because a shop this size, I cannot afford to have 2 extra copies of the 50 books that came out this week on the shelf. I can't do that, you know. And then again, that's what's so deceptive so many times when you're looking online or whatever, you know, this book is sold out, you know, gone to a second printing. Well, no, it hasn't. I got 6 you know, it's sold out at Diamond.
Right.
You know,
and of course it sold out because they printed to order.
Yes.
You know?
Right.
But if you could return those books, then you as a store could actually take a few more risks on getting some extra copies if you knew that, hey, because it's not costing, you know, Marvel that much, you know, to print a few extra copies of that. So
yeah, and DC does keep most of their stuff. I mean, it genuinely seems like I don't know. Whenever DC runs out of a title after the first week, it's just like larger than expected demand. Right. You know what I mean? It feels that way. Maybe that's a little disingenuous, I don't know. But I know about 80% of the time a DC book, if I sell out the first week, I can get it again. Marvel is very, very rarely, you know. So I can't imagine it's beneficial. You know what I mean? It has to cost them because they have to go back to a second printing, which means they probably have to pay a guy to do another cover, you know, or they've paid guys to do covers to have in the bank, you know, so they can use them for, you know, second print variants. But
We don't need more variants.
No, we don't.
We got plenty of those.
You got people
Don't
that
need more.
again. You got
Yeah,
people that
I'll
if they
pick
put a
up
new
it.
variant
And that's the
out
thing,
there-
though, too. This isn't. They've kind of figured out variants as opposed to what they were doing in the 90s with
Right.
gimmick covers. Now it's really more about the art, which is a big draw for comics in general, is
Sure.
the artwork.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Well,
yeah,
some of
they're-
the variants are.
yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. There's so many of them. They're not all going to be great.
No, yeah.
You know,
Right.
but there are some books I've picked up. It's like, oh, I love that artist. That's a great cover he did, or she did, you know, for that one, and I want that cover.
Right.
You know, like Howard Porter's killing it now in his variants,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
definitely picked up some of books I wouldn't have normally.
Yeah.
That's drawn with his no thumb. He's using these fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. But yeah, and that's another thing. The way they do these variants, you know, many times, you know, DC's pretty much open order variants, you
Yeah.
know, whereas Marvel,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
they just have,
And
you
again,
know,
and
that
they
is-
think you're going to order 1,000 copies of this book now.
yeah,
you know, but
Yeah, they cut their
how
nose
many-
off to spite their face by doing
For
that
sure.
because
Well,
But-
and that, I
but
guess that's
then-
why they can't offer returnability, because then they know everybody would order 1,000 copies
Yeah,
to
for
get that
sure.
one variant, and then they'd send
Absolutely.
back
and they know
999.
what stop
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But they're really what they're doing is catering to those giant retailers, you know,
Right.
like Midtown Comics or you know Mile High or Discount Comic Book Service, you know, that can afford to do that.
Right.
You know, order those books because they can either sell them or make those 1 in 1,000 variants go for a pretty high dollar.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so could possibly make that up. So, but you ain't gonna see them here. I'll tell you that. You know. So anyway, enough of that. I could go on all night.
it's a good topic. I know it's sometimes it's painful, but I
Oh,
think
yeah.
it's a great
But
discussion.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
all. It's not just. I mean, it is an absolute honor and a privilege I feel to do something for a living that brings people enjoyment. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and to do something that's to make your living at doing something that people want to spend their money on and love, and it's what brings joy to their life, other than just going to buy groceries or whatever like that. So just to see this end, not just for me and my financial economic situation, is just would be awful. You know what I mean? To see, to not be able to be a part of that, I would miss that so much.
And that is why it's so important for anybody who's listening to this, and this is gonna be the Campus Comics promotion right here, is to have a pull list. Because whenever, however many, pull customers Mike has, if he has all of a sudden 20% of his pull customers saying, oh, I want issue number 1 of a title, then that tells him that is a book that he actually needs to make sure he has a few extra copies for on the shelf, so that way when the walk-in person comes in, then they will also hopefully be able to get a copy of that book, or the person who didn't add it to their pull list can pick up a copy. And Wrong Earth has been a book that several people have talked about, and it's been tough to get, and if more people had that on the pull list, and that wouldn't come as quite the surprise.
Right.
So it is so critical to establish that pull list. It helps Campus Comics bottom line, helps them on ordering the books that need to actually be on the shelf. So please seriously consider starting a pull list here at Campus Comics, because that's what's going to help with that.
And just speaking to Scott's point right here, specifically talking about the Wrong Earth incident, this is a book that came out that kind of flew under the radar by some really good creators. I work at this store. I didn't get a copy of number 2. So this is the don't even start with me, Atchison. And I recommended this to people, and they picked it up, and then I didn't get mine. I work here. So this is the importance of having a pull list and letting people know. Even for me, this isn't just us, trying to promote the store. This is the life of comic
again,
collecting.
and it's like Dan joked a while ago. If there was only a way to know what was coming out, that's the other thing too. Is people like, oh, and I want this. I mean, previews comes out 2 months ahead of time.
Yeah.
You know what's coming out. I mean, you see stuff on the internet. If you look at any of the boards or any of the groups like that, you get more notice than that.
Yeah.
So if you see a book and you know that you want that book, tell your retailer, tell me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the solicitations for from the big companies for previews are already online this week.
Yes.
For the next issue of previews, which is probably next week or when the actual catalog comes out.
Right. So let us know, and then that we can get those, and let me know that you want that. Just information, and it's out there, and just to let us know. It helps you, the customer. It helps us, the store. Definitely. And So, okay.
Okay, good.
All right. We good there?
We're good.
We're good.
All right.
All
Next topic.
Next topic.
Next topic.
Hey,
Next
happy
final
note.
topic.
Yes.
Yay.
Hey, happy note. Let's go on a
There
happy
you
note.
go.
So we're all gonna recommend a trade or hardcover. Because hey, we're getting into the Christmas season.
Yes.
So this is the time to pick up a good read for somebody. So it's hard for me to just narrow it down to one.
Right.
I got two. I'm just gonna tell you. I'm gonna talk about two.
And you primarily read trades, right?
And
That's how you
I
consume
primarily
this
read
stuff.
trades. I've got Captain America and I've got Alien 3 on my pull list, and I've got Doctor Who on my pull list here at Campus Comics. So, it's those are just books that I am going to try to read monthly. But I do a lot of my reading in trade. And trades are nice gifts because you typically get a complete story that you can give to somebody. It's not like you see kids come to a convention and they pull out one random issue and it's halfway in the middle of the story, and you feel sorry for them because they're just not getting what they think they're going to get. But with a trade, you're getting typically a fairly complete story. So it's always nice to recommend, and I think trades make excellent Christmas gifts. I'm never upset whenever I get a trade paperback for a Christmas gift,
Right.
Unless it's, I won't name any titles that.
It's always somebody else's favorite.
Yeah, that's right.
Somebody out there.
Every
That's
movie
it.
is somebody's favorite movie, and every comic book is somebody's favorite comic book. So who wants to go first on the trades? So
You want to do one of yours?
I'll just do both. Of mine.
Okay.
I'll go and do both. Mine. I have one for the comic reader and one for the non-comic reader. All right. So, and I've talked about both of these titles repeatedly on the podcast, but the Silver Surfer, Mike Allred, Dan Slott run was just amazing. What is so great about it is that you don't really have to know anything about Marvel. It's kind of off in its own little thing. It's out in outer space. It's got this incredible relationship that you see the beginning and the end of this relationship between Silver Surfer and his companion. And basically, what it boils down to it's Silver Surfer as Doctor Who is. It's quite honest. It's quite honestly, it kind of is, and it's but
that's good though.
It's
still a
good. I mean,
story.
this is you just see this entire relationship go from beginning to end back to the beginning. All right, that's how far this story rides. It's 5 or 6 volumes, so it's a fairly lengthy story. I think they just released an omnibus, or there's one that's about ready to come out for this, but you can get all these trades. It's just there's some innovative storytellings that goes on in this. What's nice about it is most people who know anything about comics, they understand Silver Surfer, they kind of know what he does, but you don't have to know what's going on with Civil War II or with Cap Hydra to understand what's going on in the Silver Surfer book. So that's my first recommendation. Now and really, that is a title that I think even a non-superhero comic book reader could actually potentially enjoy. So if you have somebody that says they like Doctor Who, that might be something to consider. So my other recommendation is Terry Moore's Rachel Rising. I don't know why. I love this book. I think it's like 7 volumes. Terry Moore, Strangers in Paradise, Echo, Fathom, and Rachel Rising is my favorite. That being said, I haven't read Strangers in Paradise, so full disclosure there. But this is an incredible supernatural tale. I like stories that have pseudo-religious underpinnings, and this has a little bit of pseudo-religious underpinning involved in this story, but it's a very good supernatural story. So it's not superhero at all. So it starts off as a murder mystery and just kind of progresses from there, and it's very enjoyable. So maybe even somebody who liked Sandman might also be somebody who would enjoy this story as well. So both of those I think are terrific recommendations. I could list some others, but I'm gonna concede my time for everybody else to make a recommendation. So
All right. Well, I guess I'll jump in there. I mean, I could name a few as well, but it's funny. Scott started mentioning this one a while ago because the remastered edition came out a couple of weeks ago, or maybe just last week. But it was Marvels by Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross on art. And again, it's kind of something. Not really. It's more for comic people, specifically Marvel people, because what it really deals with is, again, it is a superhero story, but the superheroes are not the main characters of this book. It's basically what would life really be like to the normal guy like us, guys sitting around this table, who didn't have any idea of superheroes, we weren't familiar with that. If these beings with these fantastic powers just showed up and started, just like, how would that really impact us? How would that make us feel? And it's just a really good story. It's told from the perspective of a guy named Phil Sheldon, who's a photographer for, the local newspapers at the Bugle. I assume that he probably works for. I can't remember.
I feel like it was, wasn't it?
They talk about the Bugle at least in the story.
They do talk about it. I mean, it starts off back in World War II when Phil's real young, and I'm heading to Germany to take pictures of the Nazis and all this and all that, and talking to a young J. Jonah Jameson, and in one scene and stuff like that. And so it's just the unfolding of the Silver Age of Marvel Comics from the perspective of an observer. You know what I mean? It's like it gets into the wedding of Sue and Reed.
You see Galactus the first time Galactus.
This whole story that we just talked about, 48 through 50, you see about him there taking pictures. Some of it's pretty ingenious because they kind of retcon some famous covers, like the death of Gwen Stacy. They retcon one of the characters in the crowd as being Phil Sheldon.
Oh, wow.
That you see on the cover, and you can go back and say, "Oh, that was him." You know what I mean? It's not really, but they kind of did that. So it's just the perspective of this. It's just like all of a sudden, I used to be a big deal. Well, how do I compete with a guy that can fly or do this or do that? So it's just like how it impacts people, and just from the outside. I don't even know that any of the superheroes have any dialogue in this story, do they?
Gosh, that's terrible. It was been within the last year that I read that, and I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it really is from the point of view of the man on the street.
Yes,
with the entire story.
Yeah, and I mean, and some of just again, Alex Ross, who I don't think is the best at sequential storytelling, but there are some pretty amazing shots. Just like Phil taking a picture up as Giant Man stepping over him. You know what I mean? And just things like that. You get the feeling of how that would.
Oh, that would be
feel.
Cool.
You know what I mean? And you would think, man, that's fantastic. But these people, it freaked them out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and this is a story that really kind of catapulted Alex Ross. Too,
yes.
When people saw his artwork in this.
Yeah, this was just a couple years before Kingdom Come, probably, right? Yeah. So, but that would be one of my recommendations, and I'll just stick with that one because it's a really good
you can mark me down
story
for that one,
from a good perspective.
Yeah, just a quick tangent. The way Marvel milks everything, have they ever brought Phil back in anything else? Have they ever had cameos of him since in any stories or anything?
I don't recall.
Because he was such a good character. You feel like they would, like some writer would just put him in somewhere as a cameo or something.
Yeah, but I remember because it came out was it 90s, early 90s?
Yeah.
Because I mean, it starts with World War II, and then you see the original fights between the Golden Age Silver Surfer and Submariner happening. All that going on, the whole fire and water
Golden Age
things.
Human Torch.
Yeah. What did I say?
Silver
Surfer. Yeah.
Like, wow,
but Silver Surfer's in it later on. Whenever Galactus comes in,
that's a cool cover too.
Yeah. But no, that was just a misspeaking on my part.
Oh,
and then
none of us.
I've never done
that.
None of us. Kirby collaboration.
Yeah, me talking about what Claremont and it was Wolfman and
But then I think it ends up, at what then was current day, because I believe I think one of the last things is Phil's older, obviously, and he meets a young paper boy named Danny Ketch.
Yeah.
Who's the one that becomes the second Ghost Rider, the second, fire-headed guy on a motorcycle Ghost Rider, not the cowboy.
And you get to see some of those like really powerful Marvel moments, from a different perspective. Like especially the death of Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
You see that from a different perspective, and man, it just adds to Marvel continuity as opposed to it just makes it so much stronger.
Contradicting it.
Yeah, it just makes it so much stronger. Makes it so much stronger.
Yeah.
So
yeah, good read.
Nice.
All right.
Alrighty.
You two wrestle for me.
All right. My choice is Camelot 3000. It came out in 1988, written by Mike W. Barr and drawn by Brian Bolland or Boland. I never really have.
I always said Boland.
Yeah, Boland is what always came to mind as well. But I bought this off the racks. I take that back. I might have been a subscriber through Westfield in 1988 and got it. The mail service, but I bought individual issues, and if anyone that has any interest in history, especially Arthurian history, this is very much loyal to the your typical mainstream King Arthur and all of his knights, Queen Guinevere and Lancelot and Gawain and Tristan, except with the spin of them being reincarnated in the modern day. And it is a fantastic story. I know Mike W. Barr's done a great job with a lot of different stories, but it's all in one read. I've reread it recently, and it's just it holds up. Like I said, if you like any kind of history, this is one to pick up. Be there, be square.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where it's like I've always thought about picking it up, but just never got around to it, kind of things. But I've always been kind of aware.
Add it to you to read.
Yeah, no kidding. I can't borrow anything, man. I have way too many things to read.
I've got the 12 issues in my to read pile, so they're there, all bundled together.
Right? Yeah. So for me, again, I'm more of a DC guy, but I think what I want to recommend is the Man Without Fear Daredevil miniseries from '93, where you had Frank Miller and coming back and John Romita Jr. kind of retelling the origin of Daredevil. Now, this was originally released as a 5-issue miniseries. It was supposed to be an oversized graphic novel, though, and I think someone from Marvel got cold feet at the last minute, and they did chop it up and release it sequentially like that. I think it probably reads a little more awkward that way. That's why I want to recommend the trade on this. Is how it was originally supposed to be published. If you're a fan of the Daredevil show, read this book. They took a lot of stuff from this, specifically the sort of year one black costume that he wears in the show is definitely lifted from this Man Without Fear miniseries. And again, you get the death of his father, you get the introduction of Elektra, you have Stick and they're training him. There's so much stuff in here that it's just a really solid Frank Miller Daredevil story.
Him and Foggy in college.
Yeah. And it's good John Romita Jr. art. Josh. But, it's definitely worth reading. I've been thinking about it a lot lately because of the Daredevil show. It's hard for me to go back and reread stuff because of the reading pile we talked about earlier that I have. But this is definitely something I want to go back and reread. So yeah, it's a really good. If you're a fan of the Daredevil show, you want to weigh into comics, this is probably it. Yep. So definitely check this out.
I've got a good list for my family members to buy me.
There you go. Christmas is coming up. Here you go. Get on Amazon. Come into the comic shop. Pick these up.
That's right.
There you go. All right. Well, any final words from anyone here?
No. Now, are you offering gift certificates at?
Oh yeah.
So you should probably mention
that's
that.
True. Yeah. We got for this. If you want to buy these, we will be. If we don't have them in stock, we will be carrying. Make sure they are in stock. So come in, and if you're not sure what you want, if you have a comic lover, collector, reader, whatever on your shopping list, and you're not sure, which is a very common problem. You don't really know. You want to buy something for that loved one that's into this, right, Mike? Like he said, he just made his list. He can give that to them, and if you don't want to give away, what you're wanting to do, just come on in. We do have gift cards. They're just like gift cards, like you buy at any retailer. You swipe them. So it's like a credit card. So yeah, just come in and buy a gift card.
What amounts can you get those for?
Pretty much any amount you want. Yeah.
Hey, but I'll tell you what, the blind purchase is not terrible either. One time I had a friend who he was not a comic book guy. He actually, this is many years ago, back when Dennis was running the shop. He came in here and just picked 2 things up off of the shelf, kind of almost completely at random. And the 2 things that he got from me were the John Byrne Superman Man of Steel trade.
Ooh, there you go.
All right, and G.I. Joe 21, the silent issue. I mean seriously, just totally
what a great friend.
Random.
Man.
Yeah,
no idea
this was. And he picked up a couple of things. Those I remember those 2 books.
Wow,
it was just like
because they were a gift. That's
yeah,
really cool.
and it's like, that was the first G.I. Joe comic book I ever read.
Huh.
Was that issue. So yeah, I sadly I had to rebuy that issue. I actually haven't, but so hey, sometimes that blind thing off the shelf could be the book that they wanted that they didn't know that they wanted. So
and one thing about if you're a customer here on a regular basis, Mike will know kind of your interests. So if your family member or friend comes in, Mike will be able to point you at least in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Happy to do that. Another thing to keep in mind too is what tends to always. I'm glad Scott brought up Rachel Rising. You know, because people always associate comic books with superheroes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the other thing too. You know, if you just know somebody that's a reader, you know, that like maybe a Stephen King fan, I can recommend some stuff that's in that vein.
Yeah.
You
Well, you
know,
can
there's
talk
lots
about
of
The Lock and
horror.
Key because it's
Yeah.
Stephen King's son, you know.
Silent
Yeah.
Hill. Yeah, I mean, comic books are not just superheroes. That's what gets the lion's share of the attention. But there's horror, there's sci-fi, there's crime, there's
There's
just pretty much
history, you know,
Yeah.
autobiographical comics.
Yes.
I mean, it's the genre it's endless.
It's
I mean, it
wide
covers
open.
everything.
There's
so.
shirtless bear fighters.
Yes,
There you go.
there is a
There's
bunch
love
of
affairs in
shirtless
dungeons in
Yeah.
Japan and anime,
Yeah.
you know, so or
Right.
manga. So,
So-
There's girl grizzly bear stories that we are finding out as a subgenre. Whatever.
apparently. So yeah, it's not limited to superheroes. And again, you know, just come in and check out the store, you know, for other reasons than just, you know, personal reasons. It's just a lot of stuff in here to pretty much anything that anybody that enjoys reading at all or maybe doesn't know they enjoy reading, you know, give them something. It's just it's a wonderful medium.
Yeah, and
It
you
is.
know, if you just walk in blind to a store, it can seem pretty impenetrable
absolutely.
sometimes, you know, but always just ask.
Yeah.
You know, we're here to help out, and,
Yeah.
you know, we're typically pretty knowledgeable about things. We can usually steer you in the right direction.
Right.
and if you don't know, just make it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, just make it up. There you go.
We'll just Google it.
Yeah. There you go. Oh yeah. Here you go. All right. Well, I guess if that'll do it for everybody, I sure appreciate everybody coming in. Good to have you, Mike.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for inviting me, and thanks for changing the schedule. That you guys didn't need to do that, but I mean,
Nope.
aside from the great, coming home to see family, this was the icing on the cake to come here and hang out at the store again and talk with you guys about comics.
So cool. All right.
And
well,
so next time will probably be another one of our preview episodes.
yeah, I would
right?
say so. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we'll probably get the new previews probably next week. I would think. Yeah, last week of the month.
So I'll try to get these two out before
Okay. Before then,
before the
cram
next
it out.
before we previews. So maybe one this week, one next week, then we get the previews out the following. So.
Okay. That sounds good.
All right.
All right. Well, if that'll do it, we hope you've enjoyed listening along with us as we've rambled on about several different topics. Hopefully, you learned something or you figured out something you'd like to read or just decided to come in and check out what a comic book store is. So many people come in and just say, I've never been in a comic shop before. Well, if you haven't, you need to remedy that.
Yes.
So again, this is Mike here at Campus Comics. Phone number here is 618-457-6011. We're at 816 East Main Street here in Carbondale, Illinois. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter at Campus_Comics. For Twitter, like I said, Dan handles that for us. Trying to think if there's anything else. You can message us there on Facebook. I guess that's it, Scott.
All right. Scott Reed, BurgComics.com, BURGComics.com, has all the links to the Facebook page and website and eBay store. So, again, if you cannot find it at Campus Comics, then send me a message.
And Dan Brown at Detective651 on WordPress, DeviantArt, and Twitter if they haven't locked me out of my account from tweeting too much again.
And Mike Atchison, you can reach me through the store, and I think you can actually message me through Facebook without, having to be a friend or whatever. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
He'll just ignore it. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks again for your time, everybody. We hope you've learned something. Thanks for listening, and come into the store, please. We'd love to meet you. And until next time.